It's 6?
Sure.
Sure?
I won't argue with you tonight.
All right. I call the special meeting to order. Roll call.
Chairman Kelly.
Present.
Legislator Quackenbush.
Present.
Legislator Diamond.
Present.
Legislator White. Legislator Beniak.
Here.
Legislator Duchessi.
Here.
Legislator Wheeler.
Here.
Legislator Isabel.
Here.
Legislator Patel.
Here.
All right, we'll stand for the salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The purpose of this meeting is a resolution to amend the 2015 operating budget and authorize payment of the Acme Disaster Recovery Services bill from 2011. I'll look for a sponsor in a second to open it, Tom, Barb, to open it up for discussion. Discussion on the bill, on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is very disturbing to say the very least. And the circumstances under which we have to vote for this, and we do pretty much have to vote for this, are quite embarrassing. At first blush, this has been presented to us as a, oh, by the way, we owe $500,000 from a bill that wasn't paid back in 2011. My problem, of course, is that I think a $500,000 figure is a little bit too much money to pay in a by-the-way fashion. Very clearly here, something was wrong. And I understand that this goes back to not just another board, really, but another form of government that we had here. And I think is really quite an indictment with respect to the lack of leadership that was used under that other form of government, whereby individual supervisors were appointed as chairman of the board, and whereby that board had executive authority, and the chairman of the board signed on behalf of the board in exercising that executive authority. I like to think that this kind of thing would never happen under this new form of government. But the point here is that it did happen. And now, Montgomery County certainly got the benefit of the bargain here. The work was performed, everybody acknowledges that. We certainly owe this money, and we're going to have to pay it. The problem comes in, there are two problems with this, well, really three. The first being public notice. I don't think the public really has been properly made properly aware of what this problem is. After all, it is $500,000 that was not budgeted. That's the other problem here. Had we known that this problem existed, we would have dealt with it differently. Instead, now we're going to have to take this $500,000 out of fund balance. Something no one decided was a good thing to do, but is our only choice. It's our only option. So we're here to cast yay or nay as if it was a discretionary thing, as if we could exercise some opinion over whether or not this should be paid and how it should be paid. When really we have no choices whatsoever. We have to pay the bill. A bill, by the way, that was much larger when the interest and penalties were added in. It is fortunate that council has negotiated the bill so that we are not paying any interest or penalties. And I want to thank you for doing a good job there.
Thank you.
So getting back to my point about public knowledge and awareness of this, and really the flaw in leadership, I just think that has to be stated here. It's not a question of pointing fingers at somebody else, but certainly others who were in executive positions here previously failed in their duties. You know, at the very least, this is a non-feasance. And my understanding, based on the simple narrative that we got, was that the chairman thought that this amount was too much money and that he was going to handle it. And then it just went off into nowhere from there. Now, it was never handled. We're handling it tonight. In addition, previous boards should have been made aware of this problem as time went on, that bills were being received and not being paid. And there too, we were let down. Montgomery County was let down. So I think at a very minimum, we have to take some lessons from this with respect to exercising executive authority, and for people who really just simply doing their jobs in a way that doesn't let things like this happen. The resolution itself, you see under the financial impact, says that the impact at this time is there is a possibility of reimbursement. We don't know what the probability of a reimbursement is, but it's just possible. Because there's been a change in the style of government here, it's not up to this legislative board to ensure that somebody follows up with respect to this reimbursement and finding out exactly what this status is, and then connecting with this board to let us know. But that responsibility now is shifted. That's not with us. So I think this is a time to take note of what has happened and address these issues as they come up a little bit differently. And at the very least here, we need some follow through with respect to the possibility of and probability of reimbursement. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. I would like to, could I speak to Sean? He had said that this would not affect us at the present time with our fund balance, and he said that if we do get reimbursed, it's a better situation. Is he here? All right, Sean, I can do it. What do you feel? I mean,
Well, like I said,
it has to be paid. We know that.
The situation is, will it have an effect on the county? It will definitely have an effect on the county, but as you all got a copy of the latest AUD, the county is sitting on, I would say, not a significant fund balance, but a fund balance that would be able to weather a head like this at this point.
Okay, so you feel comfortable with that, right?
Like I said, down the road, if it's a likelihood is that we do get reimbursed for this, that money would go back and replenish where it's being used on the fund balance.
Okay, thank you. One more question to our new attorney. If the settlement does change, you have to come back to us. Is this null and void at that point, or?
Yes, if any terms in the settlement changed, it would have to come back before
We can't
you.
divulge the settlement right now, but if it does change, we can.
If
You'll have to come back to us again.
right, if there were any changes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one more thing. Just for information purposes, the amount of the settlement is no secret. It's the amount that we're going to be spending tonight.
I was chairman back in 2011 when this happened, and I'm not sure where the idea come that I was against paying, or that I thought a bill was too high.
I think he was referring to Shane Walters. Shane Walters.
Shane wasn't chairman.
But he was chairman of
Of
Public
what?
General
Works,
services.
Physical Services.
I don't know, but anyway, and I hope none of you ever have to go through it again, but more than likely you will. At the time when this happened, and I can remember Paul was here and we were over in that building, there were employees who were talking about lawsuits because the air quality was so bad. And I can remember this board authorizing, and I think there were 2 other resolutions that you had pointed out about the continuance of using those till the job got done. We actually had employees who wanted the union wanted to have the quality of air tested. Am I off on that, Paul? Am I off that?
No, that's correct.
And, you know, we were doing everything again, along with what Legislator Duchessis said, and which is true, with changing of the guard each year and the bill getting shoved down the road. Possibly Chairman Walters was in 2012, is that right, Cheryl? And that may be where this thought that the bill was too high. And remember, at that point in time, he was fighting for those residents up in Charleston for all that money. And he was in an argument and a slugfest at times with FEMA and some of those people. But in the meetings that we sat in, Paul, correct me, we were told that we would be reimbursed in full for those blowers and those dryers. And that's why we had those come in there. What happened after that, as far as, I know there were 2 resolutions in the amounts previous, and then there's a 3rd resolution that I thought was out there, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But as far as the communication of the bills, I've heard there's been bills that have been coming since that the board wasn't aware of. Maybe they went to Shane and I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say this. There are no circumstances, either real or imagined, under which simply not paying the bill would be a successful strategy. I don't see where there's anything more to add to that. The failure here was that the bill was not paid. If it was going to be contested, then it should have been contested. But the bill was not contested. The bill simply wasn't paid.
I agree, and we had agreed that everything would be paid. Anything, because we thought we'd be reimbursed. But we, you know, when it happened, we were all good to go. I mean, I don't know where the slip was.
Legislator Wheeler.
Thank you. I do agree with you. I was here. So there was a service rendered during both of the floods, and I wasn't here for all of them, just in 2011. So the service that was rendered, and I do commend the negotiation that was done. We don't have to belabor this anymore, but the service that was done to the county residents, sometimes less said is best said. So let's get this over with and be done with it.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I take umbrage with respect to less said. I think more said the better here in this instance. It's not like there was no effect. We are this evening going to use up $500,000 of fund balance that we had not planned on using. So that was the negative effect here.
I might be wrong, but I think you negotiated to $60,000 less than what we would have paid had we paid the bill on time. Not saying that we shouldn't have paid our bill, but this county would have spent $500,000 whether it was 3 years ago or today. But you got us down to 40,000 below it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay our bills and always roll the dice that you can do that, but the money would have been spent by this county taxpayer one way or the other. We have to pay the bill.
What are you saying? Well, what are you saying?
What I'm saying is she did a great job, and we're actually paying less than had we paid the bill 3 years ago.
But I have to repeat myself that the problem here is that we're using $500,000 of fund balance we did not plan on. We didn't budget for this.
What if you used that money 3 years ago?
Legislator Diamond.
My only question, I guess, to the attorney and Paul, if we had signed a contract stating we're going to pay the bill in 2 payments, one this year, one January 1st. First of all, I understand I would void your current agreement.
Yeah, that's right. The agreement would be to waive the penalties and the late charges, which added up to almost $1 million when you looked at all of the penalties and the late fees. And so the negotiation would be a lump sum payment now to waive all penalties, all interest, and it brings it down below what the original balance was. If we choose to waive that and do a different option, or we would end up paying interest or of some sort or another on it.
And I guess to Paul, if we did do 2 payments, that would affect our reimbursement for FEMA? In other words, it has to be paid in full before we can submit the reimbursement?
FEMA is a reimbursement.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't want to make it worse, but I'm going to make it worse. We also owe FEMA some money that we got double dipped, I guess. We got insurance money and several $100,000, so we may have to pay that back also. So it's time to settle this now, so we get this out of the way and then move forward from there.
Okay, I just want to say that I agree with my good friend, Legislator Duchessis, and I believe you made some good comments. This is very upsetting, and believe me, I've been thinking about this, and the more I look at it, the more I see it's really not on the company. The company did the work, the company did the billing right. It was more on our end. So in saying that, I probably will vote to pay this reluctantly. And it hurts. But there is very much a need here to address emergency policies. And when we hire companies, because we're going back to 2006 yet, and we still have problems, we need to do a better job. And I think that's something that we need to work on in the future. And we need to correct whoever was involved with handling this. If it was done wrong, then we need to correct that. And in saying that, I don't see any other way except that we have to pay this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Legislator Quackenbush.
Aye.
Legislator Diamond.
Aye.
Legislator Beniak.
Yes.
Legislator Duchessis.
Aye.
Legislator Wheeler.
Yes.
Legislator Isabel.
Yes.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Chairman Kelly.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Motion, yeah.
Motion to dismiss. Adjourn.
Is there a second?
No.
I'll second. Can I second it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.